mango. Added a little bit of honey. And the other form that we have is just here in the front, and it's just the same ingredients blended.
And so if you were having a dinner party for an adult version, you could definitely serve it like this, but you could also put it in the ramekin cups and just turn it over and then just serve that as dessert. Really simple.
And it's so versatile. I think with adults too, you could add in any nice herbs that are readily available and really experiment and make it your own.
That's fantastic. Miriam, you've got lots of great recipes, and people can find you at Cardish Health Food Store. And thank you so much for bringing us these cranberry treats for all of us to enjoy this summer.
Thank you so much.
All right. Our next show is on summer fun, so don't forget to check out coconut water. We're going to talk about ways to keep you hydrated. We're also going to have a chef, Daniel Bus from Chateau Laurier. He's going to be talking about the kids' wellness menu that they offer at Chateau Laurier, and you can go visit there and try out all those wonderful dishes for children. So stay with us. Coming up next, we've got more on stroke health. On Revive Life. I'm your host, naturopathic Dr. Joelle, speaking to you today about stroke, as the month of June is dedicated to stroke health. A recent study in Lancet showed that folate supplementation reduced the risk for stroke by 18%, a significant benefit compared with the placebo. Foods rich in folate include beans, legumes, and dark greens. I like to whip up a whole food smoothie in the morning and take it to work with me. Simply take a half a cup of water, 2 cups of dark greens like spinach, a half a cup of frozen berries, put it in a food processor or a high-powered blender, and enjoy. Joining us again is Dr. Ian Anderson, Revive Life's chiropractor, who I've been working with for over 15 years. And Dr. Anderson, of course, is an expert with stroke because at a very early age, you actually experienced a stroke.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. We were just talking about the fact that, you had the stroke. We were talking about the hospital, how important your support system was to you.
Yes.
And how your wife is really superwoman.
She is. She definitely is.
But we were also just coming around and talking about the emotional aspects of what happens after you have a stroke.
Yes.
So as you mentioned, depression can sometimes be an issue. Do you find that still you go through that, or is that just more at the beginning?
Yeah, I felt it in the beginning.
Yeah.
And especially right after I gained consciousness and realized that the old me would not be around.
Yeah.
And I didn't get my head around that I could be a new me.
Yeah.
And so I was still trying to hang on to the old me, and I was getting depressed when I thought of all the things I can't do.
Absolutely. And I think that's important for all of us to be challenged with, whether it be a stroke that we've had, whether we have an injury that limits us from doing anything, but just really to be flexible and think that there is still potential in us being a different kind of person.
Yes.
And how are you different emotionally? Because this experience was, again, life changing.
Yes.
And what was the gift in all of this? How do you think you look at life differently?
I appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah.
And I've learned the uncertainty of life, just kind of go with it.
Yeah, go with the flow.
Just go with it.
That's my new mantra.
Because before I had my life planned out, and when this throw was a thing I could never predict.
Right, exactly.
And that kind of threw me for a loop, emotionally and physically. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, I remember the day that you came home from the hospital. So you arrive home, and here's your house that's got all these stairs, and even this step that you have to get up. Yeah. How did you manage that?
I couldn't.
Right.
And so I couldn't get in and out of my house, and we had an therapist, an occupational therapist, came in and said, "You will not be able to live in your house. You'll have to get bungalow." And so that was kind of a motivation to learn how to walk up steps.
Yeah.
So that was my first goal.
So when you left that hospital and when they were telling you you might have very limited mobility, at that point in time, did you think, no, I'm going to walk again? Or what were your thoughts?
I had that, I had that as a goal in my mind.
Okay.
But I was a little bit dejected because I only could walk with 3 people holding on to me, and only walk about 50 feet.
Okay.
So it was a
big change.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you arrived home. You've got this baby.
Yes.
And you've got this flight of stairs. How did you and your wife manage and coordinate things?
A lot of help. So her father and mother came over to help me in a lot of my tasks that I had to do. Mm-hmm. And then eventually I took it on to myself to be able to walk, so I didn't have to burden them.
So in your recovery, there have been different things that you've experienced, and one of them is the need to use more Post-it notes.
Yes, yes.
Because, of course, if you have a stroke, it affects a certain area of the brain, and it's very common to have issues with maybe short-term memory or long-term memory.
Yes.
How can a stroke affect memory?
You forget things that are kind of important, like paying bills.
Oh, you get those nasty phone calls.
Yes, yes, exactly. So for my stroke, it was prioritizing, and the priorities were offset. So things that could have been delayed, I put it as an urgent thing to do, and vice versa.
And so you manage now by making lists and prioritizing, as you say. Yeah, kind of like A, B, C. Yeah.
And I still get some help from people around me.
Then you manage things at home. You reshifted things so things work for you at home. Now, unique to you is that you're a healthcare provider, and your job was being a chiropractor, which is basically using your body. So maybe even before that, let's talk about walking, because that was your first objective.
Yes.
And you were sharing with me that in order to be able to walk, you have to use at least 50% or you have to have at least 50% of your range of motion. So let's say, for example, that your arm flexes this much, that you have to be able to flex it at least 50%.
That's right.
In order for that joint to work.
Yes.
Which joints are you using for walking that have to move at least 50%?
You have to use your hip, your knee, and your ankle.
Yes.
And a little bit of your back.
And so one of the common things that you experience on a day-to-day basis trying to move forward with walking is spasticity, as you were saying.
Yes.
What exactly is that?
It's muscle tightness.
Okay.
And both muscles on both sides become tight, and then it's hard to get a motion because you're fighting against yourself.
Sure, the muscle's going in spasm, it's tight, and then it's counterproductive to actually flexing and moving the body.
Exactly.
So one of the techniques that you use on a day-to-day basis is EMS,
Yeah.
And explain to our audience what that is.
It's electrical muscle stimulation to the muscle.
And you have one hooked up so that the audience can see how
Yes.
you actually perform it. And how do you use it?
Yeah.
It's just tiny.
It is. So this hooks up to 2 electrodes.
And basically
here.
you've just attached them to the...
The muscle that you want to innervate or
Okay.
turn on.
Okay. And so you would then use this and it would create a little bit of a stimulation
Yeah.
so that your muscle would actually contract.
Exactly.
And by doing so, you're exercising the muscle?
That's right.
Yes, and it's helping to reduce spasticity.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if anybody out there has experienced a stroke, you do want to talk to your healthcare provider and look at all the options that are available to you. Now, in terms of affordability, is this something that someone would go see a practitioner for, or is this something that they would be taught to use in their own home?
Both.
Okay.
They-
Yes.
They are used at clinics, and they are available through stores.
Excellent. So there's a lot of expenses that potentially can happen. So we see a change in home, potentially.
Yeah.
We see the need for various devices, etc. The insurance company was very good to you in that as a chiropractor, you needed to change the way you practiced as well.
Yes.
Because we were very happy when you came back. But what did they do for you to make practice possible?
They gave me our equipment to make the fatigue of doing my work easier.
Yeah, so you have a hydraulic table that actually helps you do some of the work.
Yes, it's like my right hand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can use the table to your advantage. You still use your left hand. And the wonderful thing about that is you're practicing. And I respect your work very much. I think you are one of the types of chiropractors that really understands diagnosing and gets at the problem before you actually try and create a solution. And your patients love you. And we're really, really happy that you're back and you're walking.
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Anderson, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank your wife. All right. So again, Dr. Anderson is one of many people who exhibit strong courage and expertise. Another tip as we go into break, ask your doctor about testing for homocysteine, another known risk factor for heart disease and stroke. The folic acid-rich greens we spoke of before can help to reduce homocysteine buildup in your blood, giving you more stroke prevention power. Coming up next, Ottawa's resources for stroke recovery and more stories. Welcome back to Revive Life. I'm your host, naturopathic Dr. Joelle. Sometimes the simplest things like opening the door or telling someone you love them, we can take for granted. So take time and help to reduce inflammation, which is associated with one of the increased risk factors of stroke. Simply add 2 tablespoons a day of flax seeds, chia, and/or hemp seeds to your diet daily. Our next guest is a stroke survivor who the doctors also said wouldn't be able to walk, but proved them wrong. Welcome Abe Schwartz, Chairman of the Stroke Survivor Association of Canada.
Thank you, Doctor. Pleasure to be here.
I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank you.
You and I were just discussing the fact that it was very important that people understand that stroke is not just something that happens to somebody else, but it can happen anywhere.
It can happen anywhere to anyone at any age. Yes. And I have to say that our youngest member is a stroke survivor who had a stroke in the birth canal.
Wow.
And his parents were told, take him home, love him, and don't expect him to survive. Mm-hmm. He is now an amazing 3-year-old who is loving life and is acting as any other 3-year-old would. So stroke is not the, how should I put this? Stroke is not a fate worse than death.
Sure.
It is an event in your life the same as many other events, like graduating from university, getting married, owning your first home, having your first child. It's an event that happens. Now live with it and do the best you can. The thing about stroke survivors is people have to remember that they're not alone.
Mm-hmm. That's important.
There are many more stroke survivors in Canada than people think there are. Mm-hmm. So you are not alone. We are there to help you.
I think your organization is such a wonderful organization, and you and I were just talking about the fact that the Heart and Stroke Association specializes a little bit more in research, but your organization specializes in?
We help stroke survivors and their care partners once they leave the institutional phase of their recovery. One can look at stroke as a 3-pronged attack, similar to Neptune's trident. One prong being education and prevention. The best way to avoid becoming a stroke survivor is avoid having a stroke. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, we know that is not always going to happen. We just look at the lifestyle we're leading, the fact that obesity is a growing concern in our society. Stress is a growing concern in our society. I don't think we will ever get rid of the risk of stroke. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's genetic too. So when you have a stroke, if you're living in Canada, you're probably one of the lucky ones. The Canadian system of stroke support at the